Next, we're going to welcome industry leaders to explore why wallets need a refresh. This panel of wallet builders and service providers will discuss key innovations and their role in transforming the wallet experience. Please join me in welcoming once again up to the stage Brandon Davenport as our moderator and an amazing panel of guests.
Surprise. Okay, so we're going to talk about wallets and why they need a refresh. I think that the answer is because the industry has been having a bit of a refresh. And so I'm so happy to have up on the stage here, we've got Lewellen from Blockaid, a platform on a mission to protect us all from crypto scams, phishing, and the pitfalls of the uncharted, decentralized waters at a time when at a time when user adoption grows exponentially, security becomes more important than ever. So this is a great perspective to have. We've got Jess Houlgrave from CEO of Reown. They are the builders of Wallet Connect network, which allows users to connect into thousands of apps from over 700 wallets. They work across all ecosystems and have SDKs for apps and wallets that make building easy. So pleasure to have you. And also, of course, May. No introduction needed, but May, they are the retail gateway for the ecosystem on Hedera. Hashpack users represent 95% of the Hedera user base, and it's just so great to have such a strong community leader up here with us. So let's dive into it. So I want to start off with kind of the evolution of wallets. And so I want to ask, I think May, I'll start off with you with this, but wallets really are the front line of user adoption for crypto and Web3, and they have grown into like whole hubs, and so much complexity is built into them now, and even protocols themselves. And how have wallets evolved over the last few years to adapt to this rapidly changing landscape?
Yeah, I think when we look at wallets 4 years ago, we were looking at very simple apps that basically did transactions, and they could connect to dApps, and dApps were where things were happening. And now, as we move into a more mature market, as we move into more mature technology, people are using wallets as the gateway into those ecosystems. So we're not seeing now a splintered ecosystem where people want to use a DEX or they want to use a marketplace and they go there. Instead, we're seeing people come into a wallet and access the entire ecosystem from that central place. And so wallets have become a very central area to empower users and to access users for dApps and to connect them and be interfaces for dApps. And it's like, I read a report recently where you're now seeing that the user base of a wallet is extremely important. It basically represents your L1's capabilities on the retail front. And so making sure that those users are best served with the best UX, UI, and just can do what they want on the platform is super important, and the wallet is a central place for that.
100%. And Jess, I'd love to get your thoughts on this topic as well, of how you've seen wallets changing.
Yeah, I mean, I think May's absolutely right. The role of the wallet has transformed from just somewhere that we hold assets to a place that we want to do more things, we want to swap, we want to buy, we want to on-ramp, we want to engage with different applications. I think that there's also a lot more change to come, and to your first question, which was why we need a refresh, is because I think that role is going to continue to evolve a lot. I'm a big believer that over the long run, the wallet will also be the place that we manage our identity, that we disclose and can share data about ourselves, that we want to pay for goods and services with. And so wallets have a big task right now to think about how they can serve all of those use cases. I think that there's role in every ecosystem for many different kinds of wallets. The right wallet for a new crypto newbie who's just getting started, who has a small amount of funds, is going to be very, very different from the right wallet for somebody who's very experienced, who wants to store their 401k. So I think at Wallet Connect, we've been, as you mentioned earlier, we work with over 700 different wallets across different ecosystems, everyone from Fireblocks on the institutional side through to mobile wallets, browser extensions. And like we're a big proponent of like the variety of wallets increasing so that we can really serve the needs of the specific user.
Love that. And Michael, with your security angle, I'm really curious to get your thoughts on kind of what you've been seeing over the last couple of years or even year with how wallets have been changing.
Well, I think one of the best changes that we've seen is like the need to take security seriously, not just like protecting the private key, which is what everyone traditionally thinks of a wallet doing, and that's very important. But also like what is a user signing and how are we giving them insights into what they're like doing with that transaction. So we've seen tons of cases. You could even kind of take Bybit in this case, even though it wasn't a fault of the wallet, but like basically someone was blind signing something and it turns out that gave away $1.4 billion. But this is happening at the user level where they're investing in tokens that turns out they have malicious content in them. They are seeing like airdrops that are linking to URLs that they connect their wallet to that could drain their funds. So we're seeing this in an area where like the more successful this industry is, the more money is on the table for hackers to go after, and that means they're going to be going after wallets in effect because that's where the users control those funds. And so I know we have more conversations for this later, but I think the big challenge that wallets are going to have is continuing to maintain a good user experience and allowing users to have like permissions to operate more freely than they could in a traditional financial institution, but they still have some of the protections they're used to when they leave walled gardens like PayPal or banks or things like that.
Absolutely, that's awesome. So now, but this brings us to a next really great topic, which is addressing this complexity. And I think that with so many different chains and assets and bridges, we're talking about this additional complexity that's being added on. And I want to know, and I'm going to ask Jess this, what is the biggest challenge wallet providers are facing today? How do we solve this?
I think one of the biggest things that I hear from right across the board of our partners is how you prioritize what you're building for long-term user experience and long-term success versus making money in the short term. I think a lot of wallets, are under a huge amount of pressure to make money and to get users right now. But that sometimes I think comes at the expense of creating great long-term experiences because some of those things are incredibly complex. To your point, how we solve chain abstraction, how we think about the right and the best security implementations, all of these things are very complex and don't necessarily make money for wallets in the short term. So I think there's this prioritization, which every business has, right? That's not just exclusive to wallets. We're all facing this this challenge at the moment. But I think that's certainly one. And then I think the second is how to position yourself in a way that really delivers for a specific user group. Because I think as we bring more people into the industry, we are going to need, as I said earlier, different kinds of wallets that do different things. And so often when I'm speaking, especially to new wallets who are coming into the Wallet Connect ecosystem, the questions I ask is what is your real niche? How are you going to differentiate yourself from the big guys so that you can find a community who becomes really loyal, and those are the people that you serve. Because from there, you have a loyal community that you can grow.
That's huge. And then, May, as a CEO of a wallet yourself, this is a great question to ask you. What are the big challenges? What is the big challenge that wallets are facing right now? What do you see as the solution?
Yeah, I think that we are in a privileged position of being the dominant wallet on the network, and so we can access the entire user base and make sure that we're serving their needs. And so what Jess said about having that user, knowing what the users need and building to that is super, super important. And finding that niche that you can then excel at gets those users to use your wallet. And you can also build features that specifically target them. So back in 2019, 2020, wallets were going broad. They were trying to get as many chains as they can, but then you could only do very shallow things with them. And that has largely not driven revenue to those projects, right? And so wallets now have to say, what is my value proposition to those users in that specific niche? And how do I provide so much value that we are going to be able to generate revenue off of that? And we've done a lot of things around that with Hashpack, one of the great things that we've done recently is launch our pack token and find ways to engage with the users so that as they do things on the network with our wallet, creating things, NFTs, token launching, how do we then utilize this token in a way that is beneficial to all parties? And I think that wallets need to be creative in that, and they need to know what their users are looking for, but I think we're seeing a lot of good things come out of that.
I love that. Now, the next topic I want to bring up is, I think, probably one of the most important ones, and I'm going to throw it to you, which is on the topic of UX and security, because I think that as this space continues growing and becoming more complex, there's going to be these demands and calls for easier user experience, removing friction, all these different types of things, but that comes at the cost of security a lot of times. When you're being more secure, it becomes harder to use the products because it's more secure. So it's this kind of push and pull, this tug of war a little bit between those two things. And I wanted to kind of get your insights of how do you see the wallet space kind of finding that balance a little bit between the two?
Yeah, it's a really challenging area because you have to figure out how to give the user actionable insights without necessarily restricting the experience or adding additional steps that are going to make it less likely for them to interact. The big thing we focus on is okay, malicious tokens, malicious transactions, malicious dApps. How can we prevent those from going through a user's wallet and stealing their funds? When we did an integration with MetaMask, I think there were several key challenges that we were presented with. One was, okay, how much longer is this going to take? If you have to go to an API backend to do the security check and then come back to the user, how long are they going to sit around waiting? And so we had to do a lot of work to figure out how to get latency down to around 300 milliseconds just to be able to ensure that we weren't impacting the user experience. And then on top of that, how are we presenting it to the user? If we just say, hey, this transaction looks malicious, or there's a warning, or there's just the same thing you see in a Chrome browser when you go to a website, then if you don't have any information, if you're just told this is a warning, this is malicious, and nothing else, well, then a lot of users are probably going to be convinced by a scammer or just maybe a friend who tells them to invest in it. It's it's just a false warning, just get past it. So you have to give them insights. This, account has a history of malicious scams. There is a rug pull risk specifically here. This is charging a high tax on transfers that usually only malicious tokens use. You have to tell them why you don't want to interact with this, as well as maybe just give them warnings or simulate results and tell them.
Educating.
Yeah, educate them. This is what's going to happen in your wallet. You're going to have this much fun. If you have $1,000 of a stable coin, all of that stable coin is going to leave after this transaction. Is that what you intended? And then at the end, what we've actually seen, so it's mostly a dichotomy, user experience versus security. But in some cases with MetaMask, when we integrated, we actually saw that as soon as we integrated, because scams were just such a problem a year or so ago when we did it, that they actually got an uptick in user engagement. They actually saw more people engaging, because as soon as they saw there was protection in place, they're like, you know what, I'm a little less hesitant to engage in transactions that I might have been hesitant about otherwise, because there were just so many scams and they felt unsafe. So at some point, it can come back around.
Okay, that's a really interesting point, is continuing to build that trust with your user base. I like that a lot. Okay, and then maybe I'll throw this question to Jess, just on finding that balance of security and usability, especially with the surface area you guys cover. Interested on any of kind of those insights or thoughts you have on that?
I mean, I really agree with Michael that I think that whilst it can be a dichotomy, I think if we can design these things well, it really enhances the user experience. We do an annual consumer survey of how they experience crypto, and in last year's survey, 27.5% of people have lost funds due to signing malicious transactions. And it's one of the biggest things that people worry about. They say it's this is the biggest reason I don't use crypto more is because I'm worried about security. So I actually think if we can layer on security features, it really does enhance the user experience. You have to do that in a way that doesn't impact the UX in other ways. One of the things that we actually launched, and Blockaid are a partner for this, is we have something called Verify API, which we now have over 15,000 different domains that have gone through a domain verification process with us, and in all of the wallets that use WalletKit, this will surface whether you're actually connected to the domain that you think you're connected to, and whether it's a potentially malicious domain. And so we partnered with all of the wallets to make sure that the way that that's implemented in their UI is easy to understand, and to Michael's point, like gives them real information that they can take decisions based on. And it's been really interesting to see the different ways that wallets have responded to that. Some of them say, okay, we're just going to absolutely stop you from interacting with these domains, particularly the wallets that are targeting a newer user base, a less experienced user base. Others say, actually, like, we're going to flag this to you, but we're going to still leave it up to you whether you want to engage with that because you're a pro user, and this industry is about giving you the choice, and you can make a decision based on more information. So through things like the Verify API, this is how we hope to help support that. We're launching an extension of that later this year as well, which will touch other potentially like attack vectors for apps as well. So I think I'm a big believer that more security over the long run is actually going to make everyone's user experience much, much better.
Very cool. I love that perspective. And then zooming in really quick on Hedera, May, you guys place such a focus on UX, and then also, of course, as we grow, there's more and more calls for security within Hedera. So I'm really curious on your thoughts on this topic too.
It's a real challenge because every time you do something that can protect a user from a certain scam, the scammers will adapt, and you're basically playing cat and mouse with them constantly. For example, if they can slide in a URL, you can block URLs, but then they use Cyrillic characters that look like, the English C, but it's the Cyrillic C, and they're using the Unicode font set, and you're just like, how do you still give the user all the information while protecting them from that? And the funny thing is that if you give users, like this could be a malicious transaction or a pop-up that says, are you sure you want to do this? This is not a verified source. A lot of them will just click through anyways, and they don't really read it. And so I think a lot of this is around the maturity of the space and the maturity of users as they get used to using digital wallets, as they get used to understanding, wait, I should think about this before I connect to this site. What does that actually mean I'm doing? We went through this in all sorts of technology, SMS technology, email scams. People now know how to protect themselves from email scams and not entering their password into weird sites and things like that. And the technology also helps as well with two-factor authentication and things like that. Can you imagine 10 years ago getting your grandmother to use 2FA? You can't, but now people are actually starting to use it, right? And I think that the same thing will happen as users get educated, as the technology improves, we can maintain that seamless user experience while protecting people, and also people will understand how to protect themselves. So it's kind of like a holistic thing for the whole industry.
Love that. And then so, just in the last couple minutes here, I wanted to talk about kind of forward-looking stuff, but I mean, for me, like just kind of hearing what you guys are talking about, wallets really are, again, like at the forefront of user adoption, but it's so many other different things. I mean, like as you say, May, it's like the gateway to Web3. Like this is how people get in, and it's so important to focus and support those things. And when we look ahead, I'm really curious to know, and we'll just maybe go quickly between everybody, is what are the key innovations that you're seeing emerge in the future that you're most excited about in the wallet space? And maybe I'll start with you, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited about what we're doing at Blockaid with threat detection, and honestly, there's no like one technological solution. It's just like having very good like cybersecurity experts that are constantly like playing that cat and mouse game and able to keep ahead. But like I think in terms of like technical innovations, I think the like kind of account abstraction like landscape, the ability to like create protections around how a wallet works without giving up custodial control, I think is very promising. My favorite like analogy to that is like my granddad wanted to buy crypto, and of course the first thing I told him was like, you give me the money, I'll buy what you want, you don't touch any of it. But what would be cool, because there was another time where someone tried to scam him and literally called him up drunk, pretending to be me, saying, oh God, granddad, I got arrested for a DUI and I need bail. And luckily, he tried to send the money through bank. And luckily, my dad was a signature on the bank account and was able to stop it. So we need something like that for wallets, so that we have, like, if we want kids to interact, if we want an elderly to interact, if we want others, I think we're going to need some sort of protections like that. Maybe even like people, security solutions like Blockaid that can step in and prevent transactions from going through when we see those threats.
That's awesome. And Jess, key innovations.
I definitely would have taken Michael's because I think that that these things are going to really unlock a whole new user group. But if I have to pick a second one, I think that I'm particularly excited about the payment space and like more institutional adoption. I think that the wallet is going to become the place that, you know, like, yes, I manage all my crypto stuff, but I can also buy my coffee, I can manage my subscriptions. Part of actually like a lot of the account abstraction work really enables that, us to set policies and permissions on accounts to say, you know, I'm okay to spend 20 USDC each week on my Netflix subscription and no longer have to use a really clunky escrow smart contract or delegate full access to my keys in order for that merchant to be able to do that. So I guess account abstraction is going to unlock a lot of those things. We're doing a lot of work also with payments companies, both from an e-commerce perspective and a point of sale perspective, so that my wallet can read a point of sale QR code and pay while I'm in a store. So I think the payment side for me is very exciting.
That's awesome. And then May, besides the Denver theme and Hashpack, what are the key innovations you're excited about?
I am super excited for decentralized identity. I think that expanding the user experience from just being a payments sort of thing into a transaction where you're transacting information and secure information about yourself and all of that comes into the decentralized identity realm. I think that that's super exciting, and I can't wait to see what's coming up in the future around that, in addition to the great things that you guys are talking about as well.
Next to HederaCon, I want to be able to get in using Hashpack and my digital ID on there instead of showing it to them at the time.
Right? Yeah.
That'd be fun.
We'll put a pin in that. Well, thank you, everybody. You've been a wonderful crowd. Stay in your seats because you won't want to miss the next one. And thank you. You guys have been a fantastic panel, so appreciate everybody.